Hello, everybody. It's that time of the week for a Saturday briefing. It's Saturday morning, August the 8th, and yes, and I'll be sending this out to all the pastors in the great North Central region, and then put it on my blog as well for all of our friends and church family here in the Dakotas and Montana and around the country that care about us and love us and pray for us. So, greetings, everyone. I hope you're doing well today. Hope you've had a great week, and I'm praying for a great weekend. And so, anyway, let me run a few things by you this morning. First of all, I want to wish a happy birthday today, August the 8th, to Brother Woody DeHaven. I believe I mentioned him last week. Retired minister, but a precious brother that is living in the Billings area of Montana, working there with Pastor Dana. And anyway, happy birthday, Brother Woody. You're a precious brother, and wish you a great day today. And then on the 14th, I want to wish a happy birthday to Chaplain Richard Bershon. Brother Bershon is a retired Army chaplain and a great man of God, lives outside or near in the general area of Rapid City, South Dakota, and just a wonderful Christian gentleman, and it's been such a privilege to get to know him. Just some of the happenings around the region. Last Sunday, we got the Countrymen had their first Sunday at Beulah, and I understand they had a great day and have had a great week of getting transitioned there. I was at Big Timber last Sunday, and of course, always an emotional time. A dearly beloved pastor transitioning out, but I had a great meeting with them, a precious church, a great church, and I'm looking forward to working with them, serving them, and helping them during this time of transition. Some of you may not be aware, I do have an interim that I've appointed there, and Brother Joe Melvin, another Army chaplain. God has blessed us with some good quality men. He and his wife are serving us there as an interim, and will give me some time to do a good job for the Big Timber Church. So help me pray about that. And then just this has been a week or a couple weeks of happenings in our region. Brother Ed Cloninger at the Lemon Church. I've known this for some time, but he has been looking at retiring. And so anyway, he made that official on Sunday. He will be retiring in September. The last Sunday of September will be his last Sunday. But he announced that Sunday, this past Sunday, and that gives plenty of time for transition. And so I will feature them. He and Sister Ellen at a later date have done a marvelous job there at the Great Lemon Church, and so I really hate to lose them, but I understand, and they're retiring, and I wish them the very best, and I just pray that these next several weeks will be some of the very best, most meaningful weeks of their ministry, and there in their beloved congregation. So anyway, that's some of the happenings. We also had a great week of camp. Maybe this coming week, Brother Chris will be in the office, and maybe we can do a video and let him give us an update. But and so I will save my remarks to then. But I'll just say that we had a great week from all indications, just outstanding, over the top spiritual results, and just the kids, after what a summer they've had to go through, and to be able to be together, it was a very meaningful time. And so hats off to the Arnoviches. God bless you, Brother Chris, Sister Krista. You're great leaders, and we are very blessed to have you in our region. And I salute the youth board, a great youth board. You stepped up. A number of our pastors were there, and youth pastors, and so and lay leaders. You know, you have to take time off from your work to go and work at camp, and so we had a great week. And the reason why we had a great week is we had a great team. And so God bless each of you that worked at camp this year, and I appreciate it so much. Moving forward, I will include this in your notes, pastors, but just remind you of next week's regional prayer call, and that'll be on August the 13th, 7:30 p.m. All members and ministers of the North Central region are welcome to log on. And so that you've already received information on that, and I will give it to you again. I am happy to report on August the 25th, our lead pastor's Zoom call. I've been in touch with Dr. Mark Williams, a former general overseer, now the pastor of the Great North Cleveland Church, and he's going to join us and share from his heart some devotional thoughts, and just have a little Q&A, question and answer time with him. So mark your calendar, 7:30 Central Time, August the 25th for the lead pastor's a Zoom call. Then starting next week, I will be traveling throughout the region, and I've got several Connect meetings scheduled. And so the first two, or not next week, at the end of the month, my bad. But August, the first two will be right here in Bismarck. The South Central District Connect district will have a Connect there on August the 28th. And then on August the 29th, I'll be in Grand Forks for the North Dakota East District Connect. And then I'll begin for several weeks working throughout the whole region and looping around and checking in on you guys and gals, and getting a chance to see you, be in the same room. Zoom meetings and all that kind of stuff is good, but there's nothing like that one-on-one interaction. So anyway, so those are a few things that's happening in the region, and continue to hear good reports. Enjoy speaking with you almost daily. I'm very few days that I'm not speaking to some of our pastors and ministers, and again, I just thank God for you. You're such faithful, dedicated brothers and sisters. So anyway, let me wrap up today. Give you 4 major lessons, I guess, or takeaways from over 20 years of ministry at my last pastorate. And the reason why I bring that up, 5 years ago this week, 5 years ago today, I was packing boxes. It was counting my tenure there as a pastor and youth pastor a few years earlier, in the earlier part of my ministry. Sonja and I spent well over 20 years, maybe 21 years, I'd have to do the math, or over 21 years there as a pastor and time as a youth pastor. We lived there longer than any place we've ever lived in our life. And I thought that I would retire there. I thought that would be it. And we had a great ministry there. And anyway, 5 years ago this week, we were moving. Last week was our last week. It was 5 years ago. It was a Saturday. We went to our last Saturday prayer service. Had a little small group there that was so close to us, and we were so close to them. And so these in my prayer journal, I've been going down memory lane, and it just so happened today, on today's journal entry, 2015, I started a list of lessons that I learned at Fort Mill. And here's a couple, or I've got 4 that I want to run by just real quick, just highlight a couple things here. But the first was I want to remind us all to make sure to count the cost of the call. And let me explain what I'm talking about here. I thought I was going to retire at Fort Mill. I'd bought my own home. We had settled down. I had this plan. My kids were there. I had all my grandkids there. And I had all these plans. And then out of nowhere, and I won't go into all the details, but it was a God thing, out of nowhere, the next thing I know, and I wore the shirt today. This is my church ministry shirt. I did something I never thought I'd do. I left Fort Mill without retiring. I thought I would retire there. And then I did something I thought I'd never do. I joined the state team in Malden as the church ministries director. Never thought I'd do that. I would have never imagined I'd been living on the campground in one of the parsonages they have there on the campground. Been a part of my life, all my life, but I never dreamed I'd be living there. And then December of 2017, I was appointed to be the administrative bishop here in the North Central region. Never imagined I'd be living in Bismarck, North Dakota. And so in 5 years, I've gone, all my plans completely, it's just been incredible how our lives have changed and how my kids' lives are changed. And I've been reflecting on that the last few days. And I want to remind all of us, if if we fail to forget to count the cost of the calling, of being willing to follow Christ. I've seen so many guys and gals. I'm not asking people to leave. Don't want you to leave. I think there's something to be said for long-term pastors. But if being a long-term pastor is a part of your retirement program, or if it's about your plans and your family, I want to remind you that when Jesus comes by and says, "Follow me," he doesn't settle down. He does call us to follow him, to take up our cross and follow him. And so there's going to always be a dying to self to serve Christ. And so just be willing to say, "God, I'll go where you'd have me to go. I'll do what you'd have me to do. I'll say what you'd have me to say." There is a cost to the calling. And sometimes we forget that, and the calling becomes about our plans, about what we want, instead of what Christ wants. So we must guard our hearts. And I will just say that I don't regret it. There's been tough times throughout my life in my ministry, but looking back, I'm so glad that I didn't say no. And it's been a great life. If God calls me home today, I have no regrets for accepting the call. But there is a cost. And so that leads me to the second thing. Somewhere along the line, in a long-term pastor, there's this catch-22. If you do not feel like this is my church and these are my people and I care for them and my personal reputation is on the line, I'm going to give them my best. These are my people. That was probably one of the biggest shocks to my system when I left the pastorate and I began to help work for God's people through his servants, through his ministers. And it was a challenge. I had to adjust my thinking. But one of the things I learned when I left Fort Mill, it was like a shock to the system. But I am a steward. It wasn't my church. They really were not my people. They're God's people. And no matter how long you've been there, there'll be somebody else sitting in your seat one day. There is another great pastor sitting in the seat I used to sit in at Fort Mill. There's another great director sitting in the seat that I sat in Malden. And if God tarries, there'll be another, hopefully greater man, or even a woman, but there'll be right now to be a greater man that'll be sitting in this seat right here. And there's been other great men that have sat in this seat. And the North Central region is not mine. No church was mine, and it's not yours. We're all stewards. And the goal is to leave it in better condition than we found it, to be able to give a good accounting of ourselves to the Lord Jesus Christ. And so, pastors, I want to remind you that where you're at right now, it's not yours. It's not a part of your retirement program or for your family or making you happy. You are there to serve the purposes of God. It's a stewardship, and you've got to hold on to it real lightly and think of it as an investment, the Lord's investment, and you're going to give an account. And so that was the second thing that I had drifted. After a while, I had begun to take ownership and not even aware of it. I took ownership, and it's not my church. It's God's church, and they're God's people, and we must treat them as God's people, giving an account with fear and trembling before the Lord. Then there's a third thing, and I learned this early on in my ministry, really, but something that I learned at Fort Mill. Long-term pastor, a good pastor is a good historian. That doesn't mean you live in the past, but you know the past. For if you think about it technically, when everybody in the world has forgotten somebody in the world, then that person, for all practical purposes, ceases to exist. As long as somebody remembers you, you exist. But in this life, the moment the last person that knew you dies, then you die. And I think one of the saddest things, having spent a Sunday with a church that is grieving the loss of a beloved pastor, one of the things that we pastors fail to understand when we go into a church, we don't really know them. We don't know their stories. And the privilege of being a long-term pastor is that I knew the backstory. I begin to learn the people's stories, and I know their past. And a new pastor comes in, it doesn't mean bad, but when a new pastor comes into a new church, he doesn't know their stories. He doesn't know what they've gone through. And one of the most important things that I can encourage you to do to be an effective pastor is to listen to people's stories. Doesn't mean you have to live in the past, but that church is made up of the life histories of the people that go to that church and their extended families, and learn the history of the community. And so be a good historian. As long as you know their story, they exist. And that means the world to them. When you know the story of their parents and their grandparents, and there are going to be some sad stories and some heart-wrenching stories. But as you begin to share those stories and their lives together, it knits you together, makes you more effective as a pastor. And then the fourth thing that I want to encourage you to do, and that is to be a lifelong learner. Spend 20 years somewhere. If you don't continue to grow, then you will become obsolete. And there's nothing sadder in the ministry than to see a good man, a good woman, loyal, moral, loves God, but they stop growing and they become irrelevant. To be competent in something that no longer matters is one of the saddest things that you could ever see. And I want to encourage you, if you're too busy to spend time every day, every working day, on sitting down and growing, not studying for sermons, that's another whole issue, but reading and studying and growing, finding a topic and drilling down, learning the tools of your trade, learning technology, learning about life, the study of people, just growing, being a lifelong learner, having a degree or something, that's good. But a lot of the stuff that you learned back in college is now obsolete. You may be competent at something that no longer matters. And so the way to grow your church, the way to grow yourself, is to be a lifelong learner. I read just this week where Warren Buffett, one of the wealthiest men in the world, the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, I think it's the name of the company, one of the great Fortune 500 companies in America, but he spends at least 5 hours every day reading. 5 hours a day. He says it keeps me from being distracted by the market, which is a big part of what he does. But he has grown. He's deep into his 80s and still very active and the CEO of that great company. But he's kept his mind sharp. He's been a lifelong learner. Whether it's a business, a family, a church, the way to grow that church, the way to grow that organization is to grow yourself. Invest in yourself. So don't forget the cost of the call. Don't forget that where you're at right now is not yours. There'll be another person sitting in that seat someday. Let them find a better seat. You be a good stewardship. Be a good historian. Listen to the stories of your people. Know their lives and be a lifelong learner. And so anyway, there's a few takeaways. I hope you're going to have a great day tomorrow. I have been praying. I will be praying for you throughout this day. I look forward to seeing you soon. Let's keep running to win for the gospel's sake. And I'll see you around the bend. God bless you. Have a great day.